Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Daniel Dark with Out of the Darkness with Daniel Dark. You may have noticed that a lot of my people are business people and have different industries like that they work with. That is no different than today. My guest today is Dan Silberberg. He is the founder and CEO of Entelechy.AI. As a thought leader and visionary, Dan works with middle market companies 50 to 500 million to identify the company's unrealized top line growth and bottom line profit potentials. And at this time, I would like to bring on the thought-provoking Dan Silberberg.
Hello, Daniel. It's great to be with you today, and thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to a lively discussion.
Well, like I tell everybody and everything, Out of the Darkness is totally about, what travels that you've gone through in your life of darkness, and then, coming out of that where it didn't kill you and it made you a little bit stronger, and you got to show the light in your life at that point in time. Could you give us an example of one of the dark times in your life to where it seemed dismal at the time, but then it became something good?
Sure. So let me tell you a little story about being in the abyss, because that's really where the darkness resides. And so there's a man, and he's in the abyss, and he's yelling, help me, I can't get out. And a priest of his happens to walk by and hears him and looks down, and he sees the man down there. And the man says, Father, I can't get out of the abyss, help me. And so the priest says a couple Hail Marys and a couple of prayers and walks on. And the guy's like, Father, where are you going? I can't get out. And a few minutes later, his doctor happens to walk by and peers down into the abyss. And same thing. Doc, you got to help me get out of here. And the doctor takes out his script pad and he writes a couple of prescriptions, throws the scripts down into the abyss and walks on. Well, a couple minutes later, his best friend happens to walk by and hears him, and he looks down and he jumps into the abyss with him. And the man says, dude, what are you doing down here? Now we're both here. He said, yeah, I know, but I know how to get out. Right? And isn't that really the darkness that all of us probably experience at some point in our lives? And yet it's those around us who actually, some afraid to look at us because of we're in the darkness. But there's always that one or two people that want to make sure that they can help you out. So I would say for myself, the biggest one for me was about 12 years ago when I had a divorce, and I have 3 kids. And my business had gone under with the financial crisis. I ended up, sleeping in my car for a couple of years and needed to figure out what I was going to do next. And at 60, that's not like you're 24 and, every corporation's looking to hire you. And so actually what happened out of that is a friend of mine invited me to Chicago and said, hey, there's this party this weekend. Why don't you come out? And I thought, well, okay, send me a ticket. So he sent me a ticket. I came out, and it turned out to be a personal development weekend. And I had trained with Werner Erhard and the S Group in 1982. I've been involved in personal growth and development for 40 years, and I just felt really at home. And I decided after that weekend to spend a year taking that personal development program, and then followed that up with a master's degree in leadership and coaching. And so the light now is that I'm very capable in working with and enjoy working with people and businesses to bring out the gifts, the genius, and the light that exists both within the individual, in the collective, and in the business. And so I think had I not been in that abyss and looking for something more meaningful, more purposeful, something that would actually allow me to be more who I was, without that experience of being in the dark, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today thinking about as much of the light that I have coming in.
Sounds wonderful, Dan. Um, what actually caused that epiphany to happen in your life that you saw that weekend that made it burst open for you?
Well, I think from an early age, my family was very much into education, and I always had an intellectual curiosity. And as I say, I started my own personal growth and development work when I was 32 years old, and that's 40 years ago. And so I think it was just natural to be in an environment that was loving, caring, that could see human frailty and celebrate it as much as, we only want to show the good parts of ourselves. Um, and I think also there's a certain wisdom that comes with age. And I was ready to take that on. And I had pretty much, by the time I was 60, finished what I would say was my up the ladder business career. I had been a CEO in my 40s. I had run big businesses, small businesses, done startups. I had done so many different things, and I just didn't have the same ambition or inspiration of just doing another corporate job. And so I think there were a lot of stars that aligned. And I think the universe has a way of, we're going to try to get you to do the right thing, but if not, we'll do a 2x4 and we'll wake you up, get some attention from you, and you'll get on the path, hopefully. So, one of the things I look at is that life is a journey, and there's on ramps and off ramps. And sometimes you get on the wrong off ramp and you need to be put on the right on ramp again. And so I think this really is the work that I'm here to do. It's what feels the most authentic to me. It's where my creativity, I don't work hard at it because I think it just spews out.
Right, right. That being said, if you knew somebody young, I know that you were 60, now you're 50, you know,
Thanks. Yeah.
you're doing the Benjamin Button thing, where you're getting younger every year, but if you had somebody young or somebody fresh into business or something that came to you and wanted to know what they needed to do to make a difference in the world, what would be the first thing you would tell them?
Don't live your life from somebody else's expectations, I think, is the number one thing. So we grow up in a family and you need to be a doctor, or your dad's a lawyer, you should follow in his steps, or we have a family business, you need to come into that business, right? And so from an early age, we're given expectations of who we're supposed to become. And I would say that's the number one thing, is you have to look in your heart and see what it is you're here to do, what's your journey. And if other people don't like that, that's okay. And so the second thing is, one is don't live up to others' expectations, and the other is don't care what they think. It only matters what you think. So it's quite simple. When somebody's criticizing you or telling you who you should be, just ask them, who breathes for you?
Mm-hmm.
Whose heart pumps for you? If you're doing push-ups, who's doing the push-ups for you? But ultimately, on your deathbed, who's taking your slot? And the answer is no one in any of those situations. And so I think that while we can respect parents and we can respect the expectation of others, we owe it to ourselves to live out our life. We were brought here as spiritual beings. No one owns you. Parents don't own your children. I don't own mine. I just want to unconditionally love them and move them in whatever direction they want to go. And I think that's hard for all of us, is we don't want to disappoint people we love or people we care about. And hopefully those people want you to become who you're meant to become, not who they think you should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is very much so. People asked me when I was growing up, your dad's a police officer. Don't you want to be a police officer? No, because when my dad joined the force, people halfway respected police officers. When I would have been joining the force, I would have been slapping a target on my chest. You know, it is, I was like, I have no desire to be a human target, you know, just,
Right.
But, you know, when you talk about finding that, you know, that light, if you find the proper ember that's inside of you, how do you fan it to make it grow bigger?
Yeah, so well, that's an interesting question. So, you know, there's a lot of talk out there about how do I find my purpose? And so a couple of things. Number one, the easiest way is what amplifies, enlarges your aliveness and what depletes it. What enlarges your wanting to be playful and what depletes it? What inspires you and what demotivates you? So you don't, it's not like fill in the blank, my purpose is, because I can tell you my purpose at 20 is different than my purpose was at 40, is different than what it is today. And so it will evolve over a lifetime. The other thing I think is that we are so trained to be intellectual in our head. We need to know that our minds lie all the time because our ego is there to protect us. So 3 things. What am I thinking? What am I noticing? And what am I feeling in my body? And the 3 of those, your body is the one that doesn't lie. So I think if you can align that heart-mind connection and you can take those 3 things, I think you'll get a sensibility. So I want to take this job and I like this company and okay, so that's my mind telling me why, because I'm unemployed. If I don't make a paycheck, I can't pay the rent. I won't be able to feed the kids, you know, whatever that noise is. What I'm noticing is that when I did the interview, although I liked John, there were 3 other people that I met. And quite honestly, I don't think we were a great fit. And I noticed that when I was in the interview that my chest and my breathing started to get very shallow. Well, what's the truth? The truth is probably not a great fit for you, and you have to feed the family, right? And so it's this idea of slowing down and breathing where you can really get in touch. And our intuition is really quite good. But if we're running 100 miles an hour and our mind is criticizing us and doing all the shenanigans it does, it takes us away from what's true for us. So I think slow down, do some breathing. As human beings, we don't need to breathe more than 5 to 7 times a minute. That would be the natural state of breath to be fully present in the moment. How many times a minute are you breathing? If you're breathing 12 to 15 times a minute, you're not in your body. You're not centered and grounded. If you're only breathing once or twice a minute, are you in fear? What is going on in your environment? And just to check in with yourself a couple times a day, you'll start to get a pattern where your body, because we breathe automatically. We really don't think about it. But when you start that repetitive 5 to 7, a couple of times a day, you'll be shocked at how often your body breathes 5 to 7 times a minute.
And how often sometimes that I don't breathe at all in a minute.
That can happen. Although if you can hold your breath for 60 seconds and not be aware you're doing it, that's pretty incredible.
I've done it plenty of times that, you know, just forget to breathe.
Yeah. Well, sleep apnea is like that. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're trying to catch your breath and you're going, what happened? Well, you weren't breathing.
I do it while I'm awake, you know, and driving and stuff. Talking about epiphanies earlier, what is the next epiphany for Dan that he can really be inspired about and know that that is going to be something to help you out?
Yeah, well, I think my life at this point is really dedicated to working with people to reflect their genius, gift, and light that they don't necessarily see in themselves. So I've been doing, this growth and development work 40 years. I'm part of different networks and men's groups and thought leadership councils. And it's really sharing of this elder statesman and wisdom. And I'm launching a new program now called the Leader Operating System. And so human beings are really nothing more than hard drives. So when we're born, 0 to 7, we just get the downloads. And those belief systems sometimes can be viruses. And like in a computer system, if you don't get rid of the virus, it grows and it gets worse, and it becomes maladaptive for that computer to run efficiently. So 0 to 7, we are beings without any filter. Our frontal cortex doesn't even develop till early 20s. So whatever mom and dad's belief system is, whatever your teacher's belief systems are, whatever your aunts and uncles and socialization belief systems are, is who you are basically downloaded with. Also, as children, we know this from the terrible twos, you're told all the time how unacceptable you are. And so what we do as human beings is we park those unacceptable parts somewhere else. And as children, we're very strategic and very smart at survival. But the parts that we fragment off during childhood and the beliefs that we accept in childhood can very much become maladaptive in adulthood. So for example, Daniel, money's bad, money's dirty. God's given us all the money we're ever going to get. We shouldn't ask for any more. That's a belief system. That's not necessarily true. So I had a client one time who made millions, who lost millions, who made millions, and who lost millions. And we got to the limiting belief was that he wasn't supposed to have a lot of money. And once we integrated that belief out of him, that virus left, and it was totally okay for him. He made millions and never lost a penny again in terms of making, losing. So one of the things that I do in my men's work around archetypal energy is to go to the graveyard and exhume those parts of you that as a child you left behind because you were told they were unacceptable. So children should be seen, not heard. You don't have a voice. You're more invisible than visible. You don't need to be invisible. It worked for you, because you were in a house of domestic abuse. But in the world, that's not how it works. People actually want to help you. People actually want to see you do well. People actually want to celebrate you. Another belief is, I'm alone and on my own. Well, you can be, right? Another belief is, I don't have self-confidence because I was told I'd never amount to anything. Well, that's not true. That's just somebody's crap that they put into you. That's a virus. And so what I'm looking to do now with the time I have left is to train the next generation of leaders to move away from hierarchy, bureaucracy, one up, one down, zero-sum game, the pyramid where only a few people get to go to the top, and actually do much more of a circular energy pattern that allows everyone to emerge to become the next best version of themselves. So entelechy is an Aristotelian word, and it's basically the process of becoming, right? So you aren't fixed the day you're born. Your existence actually precedes your essence. So in other words, you're now born, and who you're going to become is something that you get to decide moment by moment every day of your life. Whereas when you look at, and human beings are the only ones where their existence precedes their essence. In other words, a stone can never be an oak tree, it's a stone. A butterfly is never a bull, it's a butterfly. A human being can be anything it can imagine and manifest. That's a pretty awesome opportunity.
So that's the reason a bunch of these guys around here, are full of bulls. So
Right. So I think the light, what is the light within you? What is this one piece of genius that is so unique? Your genes are unique, your fingerprint is unique, you are unique. What is that one thing that makes you different than everybody else?
your beliefs or your actual essence of life.
It's your essence, right? So what are you great at? What do people admire you for? What do people go, I wish I could do what he does, as opposed to all the negativity? Our brains are much more geared to survival and negativity bias than they are to positivity. So if you sit with someone and you just look at them and talk with them, can you describe their genius?
Sometimes not.
Right?
There's some people keep it held in so much that you will never see their genius until you get them to break that shell.
Right.
And then others, you see their non-genius because they have broken the shell.
So one of the things, there's a couple quick questions to ask yourself. What are the 3 earliest experiences you remember about yourself? Where are you in the birth order if there's siblings? Who's mom's favorite? Who's dad's favorite? What can the world expect from you? And what can you expect from the world? And if you answer those 6 questions, you will have a greater insight into who you are and where you've come from and what those belief systems are than anything you can imagine. And if you interview anybody with those 6 questions, you'll know more about them than they will know about themselves. Because they're when they describe these earliest experiences, you now know where their belief system emanates from.
Well, like one of my first memories of anything is sitting in a coal chute eating coal as a little boy. Just playing in it, gnawing on it and stuff like that.
So I'll give you an example. I'm in a group and we ask this lady these questions and she says, well, one of my earliest, and she says, well, I was my dad's favorite. We'll say more about that. Well, every Saturday I used to sit in his library for 2 or 3 hours, just me and dad. I'm going, okay, this is cool. What'd you all talk about? What did dad share with you? You know what she said?
Nothing.
We never talked at all.
Yeah.
Right? Well, what do you think that means? She said, when I was little, I used to get a plate of food and on the food there were peas there and I hated peas and I never wanted to eat them. And my mom always said, eat your peas. So what do you think that does to her as a woman now? Her opinions don't matter. And she hasn't overcome it. Her brother was mom's favorite, and her brother worked really hard and he got sick. And she decided that if she worked really hard, she would get sick, so she doesn't even come close to hitting her potential. So in these stories, it's just very symbolic. And sometimes you need someone to reflect out and bring that pattern to recognition. any pattern that we have, when it's recognized, brings us to a new choice. And now we can live in intention versus reactivity.
That's very understandable. That is probably about the clearest I've ever heard that explained. Without going into a bunch of long word jargon, just the expectations that one has on themselves should be their own expectation, not the world's expectation. And what is the expectation that Dan has on himself?
Yeah, I think for me, it's always to maximize out my talents. It's to show up in the world, right? It's to live my life as an adventure. I take risks. I'm a manifester. I see things in 3D, in color, in big. I describe myself as Babe Ruth. I hit home runs. I don't do singles, and I strike out a lot. But I'm okay with that. So what I do, Daniel, is I see myself as a scientist. And the reason I say that is because scientists work in labs. And the whole point of a lab is to experiment. It's not about success and failure. It's about learning from experimenting. And so when you get out of the binary world of good and bad, success and failure, right and wrong, all of those judgments, you actually have a lot more latitude to take risk, to jump into the world, to experience. And one of my heroes, Buckminster Fuller, always said, the more mistakes I make, the smarter I get. He never said the more I'm failing, right? And I think that's absolutely true. So,
and what you're talking about is the Edison concept.
Yeah.
Of, how many times did he not create the light bulb?
10,000.
But he learned from everything that he did.
Exactly.
He didn't fail at creating the light bulb. He just hadn't created it yet.
Right. And he learned, so he didn't stop. So, one of the things we always hear is we're all facing adversity in our lives. No one comes out of life unscathed. And the only question is, do you get up again or do you not? Right. And so I think I love the Teddy Roosevelt man in the arena. If you're not getting bloodied and you're not getting scarred, and who cares, the people sitting in the stands judging. And I have a lot of heroes from the great philosophers, and Heidegger is a great German philosopher of the 20th century, and he talked about the enculturation of they. Nietzsche talked about it as the herd. And so if there's anything I would say to young people, don't fit in. The more you fit in, the less you will be you. And the world can accommodate you, whoever you are and however you are. But this enculturation, this having to be the same, right? Everybody should do this, takes away from the life that you're here to manifest for yourself.
Well, like if you look at me and everything, you see that I fit into the herd, I fit into it, but I'm walking the opposite direction.
Well, the thing is, it's not that you don't want anybody to want to be around you, but there will always be a group of people who are the right group. This idea that we're all the same, that there's this homogeneity, is ridiculous, right? There's artists, there's politicians, there's business people, there's moms, there's dads, there's sports people. Everybody, there will be a group where you can fit in, have likeness, have aliveness, not be judged and told you're wrong. And I think that's a really hard thing when you're young to go, I'm going to go against the grain and I don't care what anybody else thinks. That peer pressure is really tough to overcome. But I think as you get older, it's funny when people get older, somehow they say, you know what, it just doesn't matter. I'm going to say what I want to say now. Well,
And be
you ought to
what
be
I
doing
want to
that.
be how I want to be and everything like that. I deserve it now. I've
Yeah,
earned it.
don't wait 70 years for it. Get on it right away.
We both have a good friend that whatever comes up here comes out here. Just, and it's quick. It's just
Uh-huh.
and he doesn't care. He just, but he's one of the greatest, most fun people that you'd ever be around. So, but I know you've got a bunch of other things that you want to get done today, Dan, and I appreciate your time here. How can somebody get in touch with Dan Silberberg to find out more about your company, about you, and be involved?
Well, telepathically, you could meet me in the quantum field, but if that's not your relative choice, then the best thing really is to look me up on LinkedIn. So it's linkedin.com/in/Dan Silberberg, and the last name is S like Sam, I-L, B like boy, E-R, another B-E-R-G. And at least we could start a communication there and see where it goes.
And that's a good English name, right?
German, actually.
German.
Silver Mountain in German.
So we're both family from Germany, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, but silver belongs on the table, Daniel, and gold is where the jewelry is. So I don't know why it's not Gold Mountain, but I'll settle for silver.
Well, silver is still a semi-precious.
And actually, given the world we're in today, silver is going to be, as a commodity, much more desired than gold, because so much of solar and everything else is going to require silver.
Well, a lot of the connectors and everything use gold because it's a very good conductivity.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that's very true. And I don't know whether you've read this or not. I read it yesterday, and it was something that I think that you've watched Star Wars before, right?
Yes, sir.
Who is the heroes in Star Wars, the first movie? Who's the hero?
Luke Skywalker? No. Obi-Wan? Yoda?
Obi-Wan and Yoda. Why?
I'm not sure.
Obi-Wan was the mentor, like you're the mentor of a bunch of different people I know. Obi-Wan was a mentor for Luke. When Obi-Wan got struck down, Yoda became his mentor. So if you're always a mentor to somebody, you're always somebody's hero.
Love that. So isn't it interesting when Luke said, I want to be a Jedi, and Obi-Wan said, I'll train you. And Luke said, well, but not right now. Right? This is the opportunity in life, right? These are don't be afraid. When the door and the opportunity is there, open the door and walk through.
I appreciate your time, Dan. And, we are being sponsored today by Gentleman's Cigars, a old trolley bus that was designed into an 18th century gentleman's lounge, Edwardian lounge. And now we have parties and different things like that on the bus for smoking cigars. And I don't think Dan smokes himself. I take care of enough of it for both of us.
Well, Daniel, you're doing a great job with your podcast. I love what you have in the trolley there. And if I'm down your way, I will come and smoke a cigar with you just for fun.
Yeah. And bring whatever you want to drink with you.
Yes, sir.
But you know, you've heard a lot of great information in this episode. If you're not already a subscriber, reach down and hit that subscribe button and come back and visit with us every week so that you can learn from people like Dan Silberberg, all those nuggets that you may never think about on your own, because I learn something every show that I do. Joel, we talk again next week. This is Daniel Dark saying good night.